Milei has been doing really, really incredible stuff for the economy of Argentina, taking inflation from 1% daily. Central Bank of Brazil is proposing to ban stablecoin transfers to non-custodial wallets. If this were to happen in the US, people would be up in arms. They would be shouting, they would be telling people that it's really important to make this happen.
This is a problem that I think that a lot of people fear when it comes to CBDC.
Bolivia now have more than $75 million in transactions in crypto. $75 million is basically nothing. It's maybe one random book on Binance trading the last 10 hours. Why do we bring this? Because 4 months ago, crypto was illegal in Bolivia. So welcome everybody, welcome to Frontera, the podcast where we unveil what's happening in crypto in Latin America. I'm Av, the co-founder of Espacio Cripto and CEO of Bando, and I'm here with my friend Kush. How's everything, man? How's been this week?
What's up? It's been a week, man. It's been a full-on week, but super excited for episode 2.
Great. So let's dive in directly on what we're going to talk about. And I want to start the discussion on what we just published in our newsletter about what's happening in crypto in Argentina. I think that it's been a really interesting year for Argentina as a country and for like crypto in Argentina. A couple of really interesting facts that we unveil on the newsletter that we just published. Milei has been doing really incredible stuff for the economy of Argentina, taking inflation from 1% daily. That's around of 17,000% annually. Like taking it down to double digits annually. That's incredible. I don't know how anyone can imagine 1% of inflation in Argentina, like a day. That's crazy. And all these like libertarian takes of reducing the size of the government, reducing regulation, it's been really fascinating to see. I don't know, tell me about your experience with Argentinian builders this year. What have you seen about things getting better in that country?
Yeah, I've only been to Argentina once, and it was for Crecimiento a few months ago. But most of my team is actually from Argentina, so we work with a lot of Argentine builders and founders. I think at the macro level, from what I gather is, yes, inflation has gone down, but also the cost of living has gone up substantially, right? So I think there's sort of been an offset in a way where, yes, the peso is not being devalued quite as much, but the cost of everything else just rises. So I will say, just like anecdotally, I did notice that. And I remember when I first heard about Argentina, it was like, it's super cheap, et cetera, et cetera. But when you actually go, I think, and we spoke about this last time as well, it's a bit different. But more importantly, I think on the Argentine builders front, that's what is really exciting, right? So if we look at Argentina as a landscape, we've had, just world-leading projects come out of Argentina, Hard Hat, Decentraland, Lemon, Bello, Ripio, just like a whole bunch of really, really awesome projects. In fact, I have the Crecimiento hat right here. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about Crecimiento later on, but I do think Argentina is just a super exciting market and landscape. And we've had a number of, and I think this report really dives into why it is such an exciting landscape and region. But I'm curious, Ab, on your end, like when you speak with Argentine builders and founders, like what have you sensed? And with this recent report where we profile Argentina, what have you seen come across? Like what stood out to you in that research?
There's one data point that I saw that it's fascinating. It was fascinating for me. In like 12 rolling months between July 23 and June 2024, $91 billion were like crypto inflows in Argentina were of $91 billion. And sometimes we forget the size, how much money that is. And that's enormous. Just to have like a comparison between $91 billion that were crypto inflows in Argentina to the largest remittance corridor in the world, that is Mexico, USA, 91 billion is 33% greater than the largest remittance corridor. That's enormous, right? And everyone talks about remittances and how remittances are going to be fueled by crypto. And I don't think that a lot of people have realized the size of inflows that are coming in crypto. And why is relevant? Why this took my eye? Because when you talk to Argentinian people, most of them have like senior degree level of economics, not because of studying it, but because they just understand inflation, they just understand currency devaluation, and it's really interesting to see how crypto can help there. Personally, I think that Argentinian founders are some of the best founders in the industry. And that's something that we analyze in this week's Frontera, because I think that Argentina is put in a great place because they are culturally like really like forward looking. They are not like a fearful people. If you meet them like out of crypto, generally they're really confident about themselves. Argentinians are famous because they are maybe too confident sometimes, and you can see that even in football. They are always like really proud about where they come from. And why is this is relevant? Because I think that that's a sign of resourcefulness, and I think that one of the most important element that a builder should have is resourcefulness, and resourcefulness comes out of necessity, and they've been like a really needed people for a long time in terms of economy. So it's really interesting to see. Also, something that I've found really interesting is that Milei is also not only reducing the size of the government, but reducing the number of regulations around the country. The data that we have is that, well, he says in the Lex Friedman podcast that they eliminate between around 5 regulations a day. Yesterday, I was having dinner with an Argentinian friend, and he told me that there is this government agency that is in charge of letting people in and out of rivers. They have the monopoly on rivers. That's insane, right? So that's where Argentina has gotten, and I think that everyone talks about crypto in Argentina, and I think that I'm really bullish on Argentina next year, because if this economic environment stands and crypto keeps growing, I mean, it's only new investments will come in. It's a really educated population with the with the economic need that crypto can help. So I think that it's really bullish. You're running the accelerator on Odisea, right? How's been demand on applications from Argentina? What have you seen?
Yeah, we've had a number of Argentine founders apply, and I think that Argentine founders are very strong-willed. As you said, I think there's like a number of factors that come as or backing that ultimately, right? So I think one, it's very close European relationship. I think a lot of the rest of Latin America, maybe we're a little bit more diluted, quote unquote, as far as the relationship to Europe. Whereas I think the migration into Argentina is actually much more recent. So I think that just naturally brings like a very different sort of cultural context. Argentina is also super far away. Like people oftentimes, Latin America as a whole is such a massive continent, but Argentina is quite like far south, right? And Buenos Aires is too. So I think there's also sort of this like isolationism that comes into play there. And also like all the hardships that they've had to endure. I mean, people forget that Argentina was at one point, the Paris of Latin America, right? And it was really competing to be one of the world's superpowers at one point. And as a consequence of, a number of different sort of government policies and strategies that were implemented, things drastically shifted, hyperinflation kicked in and so forth. But truly, I think Argentina comes from, and it speaks, the Universidad de Buenos Aires is an incredible university, for example. There's a number of really, really elite leading institutions in Argentina. A lot of research is coming out of there. A lot of development is coming out of there. Really strong teams. I mean, Vercel, for example, was developed by an Argentine team, right? That's like super fundamental for a lot of development that happens across the ecosystem. So Argentina will continue to be a powerhouse. It's definitely one of the strong contenders throughout Latin America that will continue to be kind of the case there. And again, I think just jumping back to like what's happening and unfolding in the region is what we're seeing with Crecimiento too, right? Crecimiento was a project seeded by a number of folks, and ultimately the mission, for those of you that aren't aware, is to say, how do we make Buenos Aires sort of a key center for crypto innovation at a global scale, right? So they're hosting their conference from the 9th to 20th of December. They're having a ZK dedicated track. They're having a hackathon, a whole bunch of really exciting activations, education, and so forth. I think it's going to be super, super awesome. They also just announced a really cool accelerator. Speaking of accelerators, that's going to be giving founders a $250,000 investment distributed over 2 different slots as well. You're pulling up there, Aleph de Verano. So I'm super excited. I'm actually heading there in about a week's time, and looking forward to connecting with folks while I'm in the ground on Buenos Aires.
Dude, you're going to be next time recording it on Argentina?
Next podcast is coming straight from Argentina, from hopefully even the Crecimiento office.
Oh, cool. You should do something. I don't know, like shield the podcast or something.
I will, like, for sure. We'll be showing the podcast.
And the thing that you just mentioned, you can apply right now for the pop-up city of Aleph Verano. We'll put the link on the show notes. And also, this is really interesting. Crecimiento's accelerator. Do you know if it's gonna be on site? It's on January. It's a 12-week program. I assume it's gonna be on site, right? Or not?
There's two IRL engagements. So one is you have to be there for 4 weeks during the program, and then I believe they're going to do a demo day in Miami, from what I read in the announcement.
Great. And are you gonna be there for the accelerator also? Is that on your plans?
I haven't heard the dates yet. I mean, I'm definitely going to be spending a lot more time in Argentina in the near future. So I'm sure I'll be running into the Crecimiento crew and Graph Paper Capital, Gabe, who's the founder of that program as well.
I think that you know that I'm kind of a nerd, right? So I really like that when Darwin studied evolution, he said that in order for a species to evolve, it needed three elements. The first one, an isolated geography. That's why Galapagos Islands were so good for evolution because each island had like a geographical limitation. The second one was that it needed a small population because if big populations happen, genetic changes could not happen as fast and all that. And the third one was a limit of resources because if you have unlimited resources, you don't have any incentive to evolve. And I think that Crecimiento is making that possible for crypto in Latin America. And I'm Mexican, right? You're from Guatemala, but I think that the best place to build specifically in crypto might be Argentina in Latin America or Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, man, like my personal take on this is just nationality matters so much less these days than it did 10, 20, 30 years ago, right? And so I think it's just we're creating these worlds where like nationality and geography is much more permeable and much more fluid. And so if you're a founder and like ultimately what you want to optimize for is like density of talent around you, right? You're the average of the 5, 6 people you spend your time with. And so if you're surrounded by really incredible crypto builders, which is, I'd say, argue Argentina probably has the highest concentration of amazing crypto builders, then that's definitely the place to be. Buenos Aires is an amazing place. By that said, I do think there are awesome hotspots of developers in Mexico City and Bogota, Cali, Colombia, Sao Paulo, Rio. I mean, I think I'm also all about like, hey, how do we not just concentrate all this energy into one place, but rather how do we nurture like local hubs as well of development and talent too. So I think that's the other angle that we've also got to keep in mind as we're pushing that energy into the whole region.
Yeah, we were discussing the other day we should do like the Frontera developer town, or I saw this meme of someone saying like any hacker house today, oh, we're a pop-up city. So we'll serve that narrative, Frontera's pop-up city eventually next year. And Kush and I were discussing this, you and I were discussing this week because I'm also bullish next year to be on site. And I don't mean full year. I don't think that's culturally the best way to go. But I think that maybe a couple of weeks, let's say, hey, builders, crypto builders, we're gonna be in Puerto Escondido, we're gonna be in Rio, we're gonna be in Cali, we're gonna be in Medellin. Whoever gonna come, just come here and let's hang. Let's discuss that. Let's do that eventually. And
we're totally making that happen, by the way. Like, we're 100% going to be getting together. And I think that's the really cool thing is you can just be like, yo, let's all get together and hang out in like Puerto Escondido. It's such a great place, right? And let's all like co-work and let's build really cool things together. So I'm super fun to make that happen. 2025 is our year.
Yeah, definitely. Super bullish on LATAM 2025. So moving on to the next news. We were just discussing before recording that if this were to happen in the US, people would be up in arms. They would be shouting. They would be telling people that it's really important not to make this happen. And the news is that Brazil is like the central bank of Brazil is proposing to ban stablecoin transfers to non-custodial wallets. That's terrible news. As we discussed last week, Brazil, like the Brazil population, is the most advanced crypto user in Latin America, and I think that comes with such great like upside for the country, but also it's like a pendulum. When there's a lot of progress, you also need maybe a lot of regulation, in the sense that the regulator also understands more. They want to be more present. And this specific fact of they trying to ban stablecoin transfers to non-custodial wallets, I think that it's a systemic risk for the industry in Brazil.
This is so concerning, man. I mean, what's curious, last week we were talking about the how exciting Brazil as a country was and how forward looking they were with their CBDC and they're looking to integrate chain links, CCTP protocol to be able to call across all these different chains and make this like a really interesting like CBDC pilot. And then they dropped this bomb, like 3 days ago, basically proposing like, hey, you can't self-custody assets. I mean, this is a problem that I think that a lot of people fear when it comes to CBDC. And I think again, like emerging markets sometimes are the canary in the coal mine when it comes to the way that countries may be looking at crypto and what they might get wrong as well, right? So I think the two things that I get really concerned about in Latin America are the following. Number one is the integration and implementation of CBDCs not done right. And we talked about how hard it is for governments in Latin America to move in sort of a direction. And then let alone like reverse course and have to change tracks or whatever, right? So that's the one thing I'm really concerned about is like poor implementation of crypto protocols. And the second piece as well is they're oftentimes doing this on private blockchains too, which is even worse, right? Like a CBDC, if it's running on like a public blockchain, I mean, there's like some argument as like, okay, at least you're making use of this like public good and you're kind of integrating yourself. Let's say it's on Ethereum or Solana or whatever chain you're looking to build on. But like the private blockchain thing, that is really upsetting to me. Like I really, really don't think that public services like national currencies or governance systems, et cetera, should be running at all on private blockchains. And that I mean, and the thing is, we don't hear about what's happening in the private blockchain space because it's private. But I can tell you, and I speak with a number of folks that like operate at the government level that are helping to integrate these private blockchains. Like this is happening, and without any of us really being aware of that. So to me, that's like a rallying cry of us being able to say, hey, private blockchains are being sold right now to governments. And because they don't know any better, they're like, oh, blockchain. Yeah, I heard about this thing. Like Bitcoin hit 100K. This sounds really interesting. We should totally do this. What's the problem here is we ultimately like aren't maximizing the utility of these blockchains. But I'm curious, like, what's your take on private blockchains? What have you seen unfolding in the region?
I remember when the Chinese CBDC started, I took a look at the white paper. Like the first thing was that it was exciting to read a white paper of a CBDC. It's just exciting because it's something different. And the thing that excited me the most back then about that specific project is that when you read the white paper of that CBDC, the most important thing that I took out of it was that they implemented like an EVM, like a virtual machine, not the EVM. Actually, they used the EVM like skeleton to build that, and I found that so exciting and so frightening because basically, if they can do programmable money, they can censor anything that they want, right? And that's the main risk. And I like your take about CBDCs running on a public blockchain because if that happens, then they're basically part of the money legos around the world. And why is that relevant? Because they can do specific markets that that any government can put rules on, but instead of doing them on a private blockchain, they can use Uniswap hooks, right? Like do a specific market that can only operate on this time frame and that only can do this thing. That's super exciting. But when they do something on a private blockchain, is basically, I really don't see a lot of benefits of the current ledgers that they implement and a private blockchain. And how I see it is, I think that we've discussed this before, of private internet versus public internet. They're not going to win. If they go this route, I think that the probability of the USD, like stablecoins, USDT or USDC, taking over the share of wallet of their population is such a greater risk because it's just going to be easier to do that. And regarding Brazil and this specific terrible news, I was just surfing the site while you were talking. And I think that for any Brazilian Frontera listener, they should go to this site because you can do contributions and you can comment on it. And I think that it's really relevant for everyone to comment. When this happened in the US, I think that so many people requested a comment that the regulator requested more time to read all the comments, right? So that was basically DDoSing the regulator with comments. It's going to be really relevant for Brazilian people to do that, I think.
The public consultation that happened, it was with the IRS, and it was basically related to
Yeah.
how crypto should be taxed. It was such an awesome campaign that was run to generate awareness around that. And this is exactly like the type of culture that I think we need to sort of foster more of in Latin America. There was you could basically utilize AI and you select like how long you wanted your comment to be, what degree of frustration, and what issues you wanted to highlight. And then it would just automatically give you this text that it would spit out, and it would be like copy the text, go here, and it took like less than a minute to go from seeing the thing on Twitter, feeling outraged about it, uh, having the AI generate a prompt for you, and then pasting it on the IRS website. I remember seeing that and I was like, this is genius, genius, genius. This is exactly the type of thing that I would love to see more of happen in Latin America. But I mean, I think this is super concerning, man. And I would encourage all our Brazilian listeners to go on, give a consultation, like share your inputs and feedback. I mean, this is crucial.
Yeah, definitely. And one also another important take that I have is that I think that this is kind of obvious when a country is so advanced on specific technology, regulation uh, tends to come in like really really hard. And we've seen this before. It happened in the U.S. They didn't win. They didn't win. Now it's time for Brazilian people to comment. Obviously, I cannot comment like officially in the site because I'm not Brazilian. But if you're Brazilian, you should do it. And also another really relevant news on this week was that the Brazilian CBDC project that is called Drex also they had some meetings this week, and they are expecting to implement it to do the first trials at the beginning of 2025. This happened around the G20 forum that happened in Brazil, I think. Yeah, in Brasilia, in the capital of Brazil. So this thing keeps going, and I'm not that fluent on Drex, and that's why next we're gonna do a research article on it. What's your take here?
This is what I'm saying, right? This is the irony, and in fact, not so ironic thing that's happening in Brazil is like simultaneously you're proposing a CBDC, and then you're also saying, hey, you can't self custody stablecoins, right? I mean, this is precisely what people are super concerned about. And I know you mentioned the newsletter, and we'd love for folks to be able to subscribe. There's a little card here where you can do that. It'll take you directly to the newsletter. So make sure you do that to keep up with the latest news. The newsletter's been growing 40%, I think, last week, which is huge. So yeah, just make sure you keep up to date. And that's the best way to get the news straight to your inbox as well.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that reminder. I think that I'm one of the worst people in Earth doing call to actions. So thank you for doing that. And one final news that I think that this can go unnoticed around the world, but we want to bring it in Frontera because the news is Bolivia in these 4 months now have more than $75 million in transactions in crypto. And why is it relevant? $75 million is basically nothing. It's maybe one random book on Binance trading the last I don't know 10 hours, right? It's not a lot of volume. But why do we bring this? Because 4 months ago, crypto was illegal in Bolivia, and this is one of those things, Kush, where it's not that relevant the size of the transactions, but the pace in which it's growing. So it's grown 112% in the last months. So it's really interesting to see a country that was close to this technology opening up now and seeing the trend of how adoption is coming.
This is crazy. I mean, the fact that one crypto was illegal in the first place to me is just mental. Like, you weren't if the government caught you transacting with crypto in Bolivia, they would close your bank account immediately, right? We have a few very close friends who are Bolivian. There's a sort of nascent but still present Bolivian community as well. That's local Ethereum community, and I think that I'm just blown away by the drastic shifts that occur in the crypto ecosystem in Latin America, right? So we've got countries like El Salvador, Brazil that has a very pro crypto, although not ideally ideologically aligned. Peru is very pro innovation in crypto as well. A number of other countries throughout the region. But to go from being like totally against crypto, saying, "Hey, you can't use this technology whatsoever," to then saying, "Okay, we're going to open up the doors," and seeing massive, relatively speaking, massive volume coming through. I think just speaks to the appetite that people are having. we're gonna, as we mentioned in the last podcast, one of the like interesting nuances about Latin America is we, by and large, tend to follow in footstep with what U.S. regulators say. So I think we'll just see like more countries open up to crypto, start to generally just become much closer and much more open to saying, hey, yes, we see this as a valid, legitimate, useful technology for us.
Yeah, this is one of those times where you see an accelerating trend of adoption, and that's why it's so exciting. Volumes in October were around $13 million. Then again, for global crypto, that's irrelevant. And right now it's $75 million. So it's grown 5x in 3 months. That tells you the demand of this product. You don't see 5x in 3 months, like never. Only when something like ChatGPT launches or something like Instagram launches. So this tells you the demand that the people in Latin America has for stablecoins, basically, and for crypto. And really exciting to see how Bolivia is growing. Then again, as a case study, not necessarily as a game changer in the industry. And just the final announcement, come to the Posada. You're gonna miss it, man.
I'm so bummed. But I think what's funny is a lot of the people that are maybe listening to this haven't heard of what a posada is. They basically like at the end of the year, throughout Latin America, people just get together with their offices, with their friends, family, and you just get together, hang out, and have a really good time. So I'm excited to see you guys hosting a little posada. And yeah, unfortunately can't make it, but I will be traveling throughout Latin America. In fact, part of the reason why I'm going to be in Buenos Aires, I'm going to be Buenos Aires, Rio, Bogota, Mexico City, all over the course of like 8 days or so. So if anyone is in those cities, please
Dude,
do reach out. Let me know. I'd love to connect with you whilst I'm on the road.
you're gonna do 6 countries in 8 days?
Yes,
That's crazy.
it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be absolutely crazy. Yeah, not looking forward to
The-
it. I am, and also not.
yeah, I think that it's one of those things that when you're in the middle of it, you're gonna enjoy it, and when you get home, you're gonna say, "What I just did? What happened? It was so
Exactly.
fast. I'm so tired."
Exactly. Yeah, but it should be
Great.
fun.
Final takes. Anything that you're excited about next week?
I'm excited to be calling in from Crecimiento for our next podcast. I'll be able to share a little bit of alpha, what's happening on the ground in Buenos Aires. I'm super bullish and really excited to read more on the report on Brazil and what's unfolding there. Again, a really important market for Latin America. And really the call to action here for our Brazilian listeners is go on to the public consultation. Make sure you voice your opinion with regards to your right to self-custody digital assets. That is crucial.
Yep. Perfect. So next week we're gonna do the report on Drex, Brazilian stablecoin. In 2 weeks we're gonna do a brief of what happened in Crecimiento. We're gonna have boots on the ground. Kush is gonna be there, and perfect, amazing. So go to the newsletter, read the report, subscribe to the newsletter, share it. If you are working at any crypto company and you are interested in Latin America, this is the place to be. We have some of the best researchers in the world doing that. We are Mexicans, we are Colombians, we are people from Guatemala, Brazil, everywhere. So we understand this thing. Thank you, man. I really appreciate you. Thank you for coming. And as I say, thank you for wanting to know more than what you knew yesterday. See you next week.
Take care, everyone. Ciao.